I've buried 3 dogs, 1 wife, and a war's worth of things I don't talk about. And I'll tell you something I learned late. A man building a house alone isn't building a house. He's building an argument with grief, one board at a time, and he's losing. I know because I watched it happen from my porch across the valley for the better part of a year. Watched a man named Merrick raise walls against a mountain that didn't care whether he lived or died. Watched him work in the rain when only a fool works in the rain. And I thought, that man is going to nail himself into a box out there and call it a home. I was half right. What I didn't see coming, what nobody in Call Ridge saw coming, was the woman who walked up his half-finished road one August morning with a busted truck, a dog that wasn't hers, and a way of looking at unfinished things like they were promises instead of failures. This is the story of how a house got built, but that's the smallest part of it. Stay with me, because the real thing being finished out there wasn't made of wood. The first time I spoke to Merrick proper, he was bleeding into his own foundation and pretending he wasn't. I'd ridden over on the gray mare because I'd heard the generator kick on before sunup 3 days running, and out here that's either ambition or trouble, and at my age the two look about the same. I found him kneeling in the mud where the concrete met the framing, holding his left hand against his shirt, and the shirt had gone a dark color that wasn't dye. "You need a hospital," I said. "No hello, we didn't do hellos yet." "I need a second set of hands," he said, not looking up. "Hospital's 90 minutes. Hands are right there on the end of your arms." My name's Warwick Boone. I'm 71 years old and I've got no business climbing scaffolding, and I want that on the record before I tell you I climbed the scaffolding. Somebody had to hold the header while he ran a bead of glue and drove screws one-handed, and the somebody was me, because the somebody is always whoever's fool enough to show up. I held the beam. He worked. Blood ran down his wrist and he ignored it the way you ignore a phone ringing when you already know it's bad news. "What happened to the hand?" I said. "Chisel slipped." "Chisel slips because you're tired." "Chisel slips because chisels slip," he said, and there was no heat in it, just the flat exhaustion of a man who'd had this argument with himself and lost. Let me tell you what I saw when I looked at that house, because a house tells on the man who's building it. It was going to be beautiful. I mean that. Timber frame, real joinery, the kind of dovetailing you don't see anymore because nobody's got the patience or the grief to slow down that much. Every joint was a conversation. Every beam had been sanded like it mattered to somebody. And it was too big for one man. That was the thing that put a stone in my chest. It was a family house. 4 bedrooms of a house. A wraparound porch, watch your kids in the yard house. And there was exactly 1 truck parked out front and 1 cot in the finished corner of the ground floor and 1 coffee cup drying on 1 nail by the window. I've lived long enough to read a floor plan like an obituary. "Who's it for?" I asked him, gentle as I know how, which isn't very. He drove the last screw, set the driver down, looked at the header we just hung like it had personally disappointed him. "Me," he said. And I let it go, because you don't pick at a man's stitches the first day you meet him. Here's what I pieced together over the following weeks, partly from him and partly from the way the town talks when a stranger buys the old Haverson parcel and starts pouring concrete. Merrick was 38. He'd been an engineer somewhere flat and far away, Texas, I think, though he was cagey about it. He and his wife had bought the plans for this house together. Sarah. He said her name maybe 4 times the whole year I knew him, and every time it came out of him like a splinter working its way to the surface, slow and against the grain. They designed it together, every room. She'd wanted the big kitchen window facing east so she could watch the sun come up over the ridge while the coffee brewed. He'd wanted the workshop. They'd compromised on the porch, which is what a marriage is mostly, a long negotiation about porches. She never saw the mountain. That's the part that undid me when I finally understood it. She got sick between the buying of the land and the building of the house, and it was the fast kind of sick, the kind that doesn't give you time to say the things, and Cole had come up here alone to build the house they drew together because what's the alternative? Sell the plans. Burn them. Some men would have. Cole Merrick decided he was going to build a monument out of the one thing they'd made together that could still be made, and he was going to do it with his own 2 hands or die on the scaffolding trying. And honest to God, some mornings I couldn't tell which outcome he was aiming for. A man like that doesn't need a house. He needs the building of it. The finishing would be the problem. I knew that even then. What happens to a man like Cole on the day there's nothing left to nail? I worried about that day. I'll be honest with you, I lay awake on it. She showed up on a Tuesday. I know it was a Tuesday because I'd been to town for feed, and the feed stores only open Tuesday and Friday, and I was coming back up the valley road when I saw the truck. It was pulled onto the shoulder at the fork where Cole's half-graded road split off from the county gravel, and it was steaming from under the hood in a way that means your afternoon is ruined and possibly your week. A woman stood beside it with her hands on her hips, looking at the engine with the specific fury of somebody who knows exactly what's wrong and can't fix it with what she's got. And there was a dog. Big ugly shepherd mix, one ear up, one ear giving up, sitting in the truck bed like a hood ornament that had opinions. I slowed the mare. "That truck's not going anywhere warm," I said. She looked up at me. I want to describe her right, because everybody in this story gets described wrong eventually, and I'd like to do her the courtesy of accuracy. She was maybe 35. Dark hair pulled back hard and losing the fight. A face that had done some crying at some point in its life and decided against making a habit of it. Greased to the elbow. And eyes that took my measure in about a second and a half and filed me under old man on a horse, probably harmless. "Thermostat's shot," she said. "Or the water pump, or both, because that's how the day's going." She wiped her hands on a rag that made them worse. "You know anywhere near here a person could get a part or at least a phone signal?" "Near here," I said, "is a relative term." She laughed. It surprised us both. It was a real laugh, short and cracked, the laugh of somebody who'd been running low on reasons to. The dog barked once, like punctuation. "He yours?" I asked. "He is now," she said. "Found him at a gas station 2 states back. Nobody claimed him. I figured we were both strays, might as well be strays together." She scratched his ugly head and he leaned into it like he'd been waiting his whole life for exactly that hand. "Name's Dahlia, by the way. The person, not the dog. Dog doesn't have a name yet. He's auditioning." "Dahlia?" I turned it over. It suited her, a flower that blooms late and stubborn, long after the pretty ones have quit. "Warwick," I said. "There's a man up that road building a house who's got a generator, a tool bench, and more mechanical sense in his little finger than the whole town's got put together. He also," I added, because I believe in honesty even when it's inconvenient, "hasn't strung together a full conversation with a living soul in about 6 weeks that I'm aware of. So go easy." She looked up the road, chewed on it. "He mean?" "No," I said. "He's grieving. It looks like mean from the outside if you don't know the shape of it." Something moved across her face when I said that. Recognition. The look of somebody hearing a word in their own language spoken by a stranger. "Yeah," she said quietly, "I know that shape." I could tell you I engineered what happened next. That I saw 2 broken people and played matchmaker from atop my gray mare like some kind of frontier Cupid. I didn't. All I did was point a stranded woman up a road toward a man with a wrench. That's not fate. That's just neighborliness and a busted thermostat. But I did ride up after her. For the dog's sake, I told myself. In case the man with the grief scared off the woman with the truck. I needn't have worried. By the time I got the mare up the grade, Dahlia was already leaning under Cole's hood beside him, the 2 of them arguing. Because, if you'd flush it, instead of just swapping the part, you wouldn't be back here in 3 weeks with the same. "I know how to flush a cooling system, thank you." "Then why's it corroded like a shipwreck in there?" Because it's a 19-year-old truck that isn't mine. That's the point, you flushed the system before. I sat on the mare and watched Cole Merrick, who had not finished a sentence with another human being in 6 weeks, get into a full-throated fight about coolant with a woman he'd known for 11 minutes. I want to be careful here. This is the part where a lazy storyteller would tell you they fell in love. They didn't. Not that day, not that month. What happened that day was smaller and truer than love, and it was this. For about 40 minutes, Cole Merrick forgot to be sad. I watched it happen. I watched the grief let go of his shoulders one finger at a time while he argued about water pumps. I watched him laugh, an ugly, rusty, out-of-practice sound, like a gate that hasn't swung in a season, when the dog jumped down and stuck its whole head in the toolbox and came up with a socket wrench in its mouth like a prize. "That dog's a menace," Cole said. "That dog," Dahlia said, "has better instincts than most people. He picked the 10mm. You know how many people spend their whole lives looking for a 10mm. Cole looked at the dog. The dog looked at Cole. Some kind of contract was signed that neither of them would admit to later. "He can stay while we fix the truck," Cole said. "The dog the dog can stay." "Big of you," said Dahlia. The truck took 3 days to fix, because the part had to come from a city 90 minutes off and the man who brought it up got the day wrong. 3 days. I've thought a lot about those 3 days. About how the whole rest of it, everything that came after, the good and the terrible both, hung on a thermostat and a delivery driver's bad memory. Dahlia camped in the finished corner of the ground floor, on the opposite side from Cole's cot, with the dog between them like a furry armistice. I brought over eggs and a spare bedroll and pretended it was for the dog. And here's what I noticed on day 2. I came up with the eggs and I didn't find them arguing and I didn't find them talking. I found them working, side by side. Cole was fitting a window, the big east-facing one, the one that was Sarah's, though I didn't know that yet, and Dahlia was holding the frame square while he shimmed it, and neither of them was saying a word. It was the quietest thing I ever saw, and it was so full. Because I'd watched Cole hang beams alone all year, and there's a particular loneliness to a man doing a 2-person job by himself. The way he has to rig up clamps and props and workarounds, the way the work fights him every step because it was designed for 4 hands and he's only got 2. It makes the labor twice as long and 10 times as bitter. Every board a struggle. Every joint a small defeat that he wins anyway, alone. And the winning tastes like nothing because there's no one to win it in front of. And now here was a second set of hands, just holding the frame square, just doing the simple thing that made the hard thing possible. And Cole was fitting that window faster and cleaner than I'd seen him fit anything all year, and his face. His face had something on it I hadn't seen. It took me a minute to name it because it had been absent so long. It was ease. The man was at ease. "Square?" he asked. "Square," she said. He drove the screw. And the window, Sarah's window, the one that would catch the sunrise over the ridge that Sarah never got to see, settled into the wall like it had always meant to be there. Like it had just been waiting for a second set of hands. I set the eggs down and I left without a word, because some things a man shouldn't watch too long, and some prayers get answered so quiet you'll miss them if you're talking. On the 3rd day the truck was fixed. I was there when Dahlia turned the key and it caught rough, then smooth, the engine finding its feet like a calf standing up. She let it run, stood back, wiped her hands on the rag that never got them clean. "Well," she said, "that's that." And there was a silence, then that I could have leaned a ladder against. Cole was standing by the porch he and Sarah had compromised on, the porch that was still just posts and a promise, no roof, no rail. He had a coffee cup in his hand. He didn't drink from it. He looked at the truck that worked now, and at the road that led back to the county gravel and from there to everywhere else in the world that wasn't here, and I watched him try to find the words and lose. Because here's the thing about a man like Cole. He'd built his whole life that year on the certainty that he didn't need anybody, that the house was a thing he owed to a dead woman and a debt you pay alone. To ask this stranger to stay would be to admit that the 3 best days he'd had since Sarah died were the 3 days he wasn't alone, and that admission, for a man like Cole, was a kind of betrayal. Of the grief. Of the solitude he'd married when he lost the wife. So he didn't ask. He said, "Roads are bad north of here this time of year." Which is a thing you say. It's not a thing you feel. Dahlia looked at him. She had his number, I think, from the start. She'd known that shape, she'd told me. She knew a man drowning in something he wouldn't name because she'd done her own drowning in her own something, out there on the road with a dog that wasn't hers and a truck that wouldn't run. Roads are bad everywhere, she said. That's not a reason. No, Cole admitted, it's not. The dog looked between them, whined once. And I'll tell you, I nearly said something. Old fool that I am, I nearly opened my mouth from the saddle and told them both to quit dancing and admit what any blind man on a horse could see. But I didn't, because it wasn't mine to say. Because the only thing worse than watching two people almost reach for each other is being the one who forces the reach and finds out it was never going to hold. Dahlia opened the truck door. The dog didn't move. She looked at the dog. Come on. The dog looked at Cole. He picked the 10mm, Cole said, quiet, almost to himself. He did, said Dahlia. He's got good instincts, you said. I did say that. Cole set the coffee cup down on the porch rail that didn't exist yet, on a post, carefully, like it was the most important thing he'd done all year. And he said the thing. God help him, he found it and he said it. The house needs a second set of hands, he said. Just to finish it, that's all. It's a 2-person job and I've been doing it alone and I'm tired, Dahlia. I'm so tired, and you know how to flush a cooling system. He stopped, started again, smaller. There's a lot of the house left. It'd take a while. I can't offer you. He ran out of road. It's just a house that needs finishing. And Dahlia stood there by the open door of the truck that worked now. The truck that could take her anywhere, and she looked at the half-built house, the 4 bedrooms, the porch that was only posts, the east window catching the last of the light. Everything needs finishing, she said. She shut the truck door. The dog's tail went like a metronome. I rode home that evening with something loosening in my chest that had been tight so long I'd stopped noticing it. The sun went down red over the ridge, and I thought about second sets of hands, and about how the whole architecture of a life can hang on a stranger and a busted truck, and about how the house up there might get finished after all. I should have known better. I've lived too long to trust an easy evening. Because there were things about Dahlia I didn't know yet. Things about why a woman ends up on a 2-state road with a dog that isn't hers and a truck she can barely keep running from something she never once named in 3 days of talking. There's a reason people become strays. Nobody's born on the shoulder of the road. And there was the house itself, the finishing of it, and the question I'd lain awake on. What happens to a man like Cole on the day there's nothing left to build? I didn't know yet that we were all going to find out. I didn't know yet about the letter. The letter came in October, and I want to tell you about October first, because October was the good part, and a man should get to say the good part out loud before he tells you how it broke. By October, the house had a roof. I don't know if you understand what that means to me, so let me put it plain. For the better part of a year, I'd watched Merrick fight that mountain alone, and the house had gone up the way a thing goes up when one man drags it into the world by force, slow and crooked with effort, every board a wound he inflicted on the sky. And now, in October, it had a roof, clean rafters, ridged lines straight as a spirit level. And it had gone up in 6 weeks instead of 6 months, because there were 4 hands instead of 2. That's the arithmetic of it, but the arithmetic isn't the truth. The truth was in the way they worked. I came up most days, told myself it was for the dog, who by then had a name, Cole called him 10, for the 10mm, and it fit him, an honest, ugly number of a dog. I'd sit on the tailgate and watch the two of them move around each other on the scaffolding with the kind of wordless coordination that takes married couples a decade to learn. Dahlia would reach for a tool and it'd already be in the air, tossed from Cole's hand before she asked. Cole would step back off a joist, and Dahlia's hand would be on his belt loop, steadying, before he knew he'd lost his footing. They weren't in love. I keep saying that and you keep not believing me, and that's fine, but I mean it precise. What they had wasn't the loud thing. It was the thing underneath the loud thing, the foundation the loud thing gets built on if you're lucky. A deep, unspoken, two people carrying one heavy thing kind of trust. Love's the house. This was the concrete. You pour it first and you pour it quiet, and nobody throws a party over concrete. And here's what I watched happen to Cole across those weeks. The grief didn't leave him. Grief doesn't leave. Anybody who tells you it leaves is selling something. But it changed shape. It stopped being the whole room and became a piece of furniture in the room. He could walk around it now. Some evenings I'd catch him standing at the east window, Sarah's window, looking out at the ridge, and his face would have that old undertow in it, that pull. But then Ten would shove his fool head under Cole's hand, or Dahlia would holler up from the workshop about where he'd hidden the good chisel, and Cole would come back from wherever the window took him. He'd come back to the house, to the living part. One evening I found him alone on the porch. It had a floor by then, and a rail, the compromise porch made real at last, and he was just sitting, Ten's head in his lap, and he said, not looking at me, "I used to think finishing it would feel like an ending. And now I'm scared of finishing it," he said, "because I don't know what she does when it's done. Dahlia, there's no more house to need her for." He rubbed the dog's ear between his fingers. The house was the reason. When there's no more house, he didn't finish. I should have said something wise. I'm the old man in this story. It's my job to have the wisdom, but I didn't have any. I just sat with him and we watched the dark come up the valley, and I thought, he still thinks she stayed for the house. He hadn't understood yet that nobody flushes another man's cooling system for a house. The letter came from a lawyer in a city I won't name, and it was addressed to Dahlia at a general delivery box in town. She'd set up her second week, and I only know what was in it because of what came after, and because at the end she told me herself. She had a husband. Not an ex, a husband. Legal and living, back in the flat far-off place she'd run from, and the reason she'd run was the reason women run, the oldest and ugliest reason, and I'm not going to make you sit in the details of it because she didn't make me. I'll say only this. The dog wasn't the first stray she tried to save, and the truck that wouldn't run was the second best thing that ever happened to her, because it stranded her on the one shoulder of the one road that led to the one house she was meant to help finish. The best thing was the leaving. The letter was the bill for the leaving. He'd found her. That's what the lawyer's letter meant, underneath the lawyer words. He'd found where she was, or found close enough, and the paper was a summons dressed up as a formality, and it meant that the flat far-off place had a claim on her that a half-built house on a mountain couldn't answer. She didn't tell Cole. That's the part I understood best. God help me, because it's the part I'd have done myself. She'd found the first peace she'd known in years, in the quiet arithmetic of 4 hands doing 2-hand work, and she wasn't going to spill her old poison into that clean water. So she folded the letter into her jacket, and she went back to hanging cabinet doors, and she said nothing. And for 2 weeks she carried the whole weight of it alone, which, if you've been paying attention, is exactly the sin this whole story was supposed to cure. Carrying the heavy thing alone. That was Cole's disease when we started. And here it had jumped to her, or maybe it had always been in her too. Maybe that's why they fit. 2 people who'd each decided, somewhere back down their separate roads, that the loving thing to do was to suffer where nobody could see. I found out because I saw her crying in the workshop. Not the good kind. I didn't know there was a good kind of crying until I saw the bad kind on Dahlia, who I'd never seen cry at all. She was sitting on an overturned bucket with a cabinet door across her knees, and her hands were still. That's what scared me. Her hands were never still, and the tears were just running off her jaw onto the wood, quiet, like a gutter after the rain's already stopped. "He's going to make me go back," she said when she saw it was only me, "or make it so ugly to stay that going back looks kind." She wiped her face with the back of her wrist, left a smear of sawdust like war paint. "I can't bring that here, Warwick. I can't bring what he is into this house. Cole's already got one ghost in these walls. He doesn't need mine." And there it was, the morally heavy thing, the choice. She could stay and fight, and drag Cole and the half-built house and the ugly dog into a war that wasn't theirs. Or she could leave, quiet in the night the way she came, and take her ghost with her and let Cole finish his house in the peace she'd helped him find, and let him think forever that she'd only ever stayed for the carpentry. She'd already chosen. I could see she'd already chosen. She was going to leave. "He'll think I didn't care," she said. "That's the part. He'll think I was just passing through. I'd rather he think that than have me be one more thing that broke on him." "Dahlia," I said. "Don't." She stood up. "Set the cabinet door down gentle, the way Cole set down that coffee cup, the way you handle the last thing that matters. Don't make it a speech, Warwick. I've heard every speech. I made most of them up myself driving out here. There's no speech. Now, I'm an old man and I've kept out of everybody's business in this story right up till now, and I've been proud of it, that restraint. I've held it up like it was wisdom. But I want to tell you what I did next, because I've thought about it every day since and I still don't know if it was the right thing, and a man ought to confess the things he isn't sure of. I told Cole. Not the details. I didn't have the right to her details. But that night I rode up and I found him at the east window and I said, "The woman's fixing to leave, and it's not because she wants to, and if you let her walk out of here believing you only wanted her for the two-hand work, you'll deserve the house you finish alone." He turned from the window slow. "What are you talking about?" "There's a letter," I said. "There's a reason she was on that road. I don't know all of it and it's not mine to tell. But she's carrying something heavy and she's decided to carry it away from here so it doesn't land on you. And she's going to do it quiet, and you're going to wake up to a fixed truck gone from the yard, and you're going to spend the rest of your life in this beautiful finished house thinking she didn't care." I got down off the mare, which at my age is its own small ordeal. "I've watched you build this whole place on the idea that a man carries his heavy things alone. She learned it from somewhere too. You two are about to prove each other right, and it's going to ruin you both." Cole didn't say anything for a long time. Ten leaned against his leg. Out the east window, the ridge went from black to the deep blue that comes just before it's all the way night. "What do I do?" he said finally. And it wasn't rhetorical. He was actually asking me, the man who'd never once in a year taken advice from anybody, asking a 71-year-old fool on a horse what to do, and I understood that this was Cole handing me the thing he never handed anyone, the admission that he couldn't carry it alone either. "I don't know," I said, because it was true, "but I know you don't let her leave believing a lie, whatever else happens. You don't let her drive off thinking she was just hands. Give her the truth to take with her if she's got to go. Let her take that instead of the lie. It weighs less." He found her at the truck. Of course he did. Where else does this story go but back to the truck that started it? The truck that could end it, the busted then fixed heart of the whole thing. I wasn't going to watch. I'd meddled enough. But Ten wouldn't let me leave, kept blocking the mare, hurting me, that dog with his good instincts. And so I stood at the edge of the yard in the dark and I saw it. And I'm glad I did, because otherwise I wouldn't believe the next part myself. She had a bag in the truck bed. She'd been packing, caught in the act. "Don't," she said before he got a word out. "Warwick told you. I can see he told you. Cole, you don't understand what's coming, and I am not going to let it come here. I am not going to be the thing that breaks this place after you spent a year building it. You deserve to finish it clean. You deserve." "Dahlia, stay." I can't. Her voice cracked clean down the middle. I can't ask you to fight my war. It's not yours. The house isn't. You don't need me for the house anymore. It's nearly done. You can finish the trim yourself. You don't need. And Cole Merrick, who could not finish a sentence when I met him, who'd built a monument to the proposition that a man suffers alone, said the thing that finished the whole story. I don't need you for the house, he said. I stopped needing you for the house in September. I've been finding reasons to keep you here for 2 months because I ran out of house before I ran out of wanting you to stay. The trim's been done for a week, Dahlia. I've been undoing it at night so there'd be more to fix in the morning. So you'd stay one more day. Silence, the generator ticking as it cooled. Somewhere down the valley, an owl asking its one question. You've been undoing the trim, she said. Every night. That's insane. I know. That's the most insane. And she started to laugh, that cracked short laugh I'd heard on the road the first day, except now it had the crying folded into it, the two of them coming out at once, laughing and weeping, standing at the tailgate of the truck that wouldn't run and then did. You've been sabotaging your own house. To keep me. You could have just, she stopped. You could have just asked me to stay. I didn't know how to ask for something I wanted, Cole said. I only know how to ask for help with something that needs doing, so I made sure something always needed doing. And she understood him then all the way down. I saw it land. Because that was her disease too, wasn't it? She could accept being needed for the two-hand work. She could stay for a house, but to be wanted plainly for nothing but herself, with no busted truck or half-built wall to justify it. That was the thing neither of them had ever once in their lives been able to ask for or believe. He asked for it. Standing there, he finally just asked. The war that's coming, Cole said. The letter, whatever it is. I've got a ghost in these walls already, you're right. Sarah's in the east window and she's always going to be, and I won't pretend otherwise, and if you stay in a house that's got another woman's sunrise built into it. That's what I'm offering. It's not clean. It's not a fresh start. It's a haunted house on a hard mountain with an ugly dog and a man who undoes his own trim. He held out his hand, not to shake. Just held it out open, the oldest gesture there is. But you won't fight your war alone. That's the only promise I've got, and I'll keep it till I'm dead. Whatever's in that letter, it lands on two of us now. That's the whole offer. Stay and let it land on two. I'm going to leave out what she said back. I stood at the edge of that yard and I heard it, and it wasn't mine. It was hers. The only thing in this whole story that was hers alone. And I've told you everything else, but I'm going to keep that one thing. She earned one thing that doesn't get told. Let her have it. I'll tell you she didn't get in the truck. I'll tell you the bag came out of the truck bed the next morning, and Ten carried one shoe of it around the yard in triumph for an hour, and nobody could catch him and nobody much tried. The war came. I won't pretend it didn't, and I won't pretend it was easy, because that would cheapen what it cost. The letter turned into other letters, and the other letters turned into a hard, cold winter of lawyers and one bad afternoon in a courthouse 90 minutes off that I drove them to myself. All three of us silent the whole way there, and Dahlia's hand white-knuckled on Cole's the whole way back. It cost money they didn't have, and sleep they couldn't spare, and it put lines in both their faces that hadn't been there in October. But it landed on two of them. That was the difference. That was the whole difference in the world. Every ugly piece of it they carried between them, 4 hands on one heavy thing, the way they'd carried the beams and the window frames and the roof. It turns out a marriage is the same job as a house. It's a 2-person job somebody keeps trying to do alone. They finished the house that spring. The real finish, the trim and all, no more midnight sabotage. And the day it was done there wasn't any big moment, no ribbon, no speech. I'd half expected Cole to have some kind of reckoning with the finishing, the day I'd lain awake worrying about, the day there'd be nothing left to build. But that day came and went, and Cole was fine because I'd been wrong about the thing he was building all along. We all had. The house was never the thing. The house was just the excuse 2 people needed to build the other thing, the thing you can't see, the thing that doesn't photograph. I know because I was there the morning it was truly done. Early. The east window caught the sunrise over the ridge, Sarah's sunrise, the one she drew and never saw, and the light came through it and fell across the kitchen floor, and Dahlia was standing in it with a cup of coffee. In the window another woman had wanted, watching a mountain another woman had loved, and there was no jealousy in it and no ghost crowding her out. Just two women who'd loved the same stubborn man, one of them gone and one of them staying, and the same sun coming up on both of them through the same glass. Cole came and stood beside her, didn't say anything. Ten flopped down in the warm patch of light on the floor with a groan like an old man. And I understood, finally, what I'd been watching build all year. He needed someone to help finish his dream house. She became the missing piece of his life. But the house was never the dream, and she was never a piece of it. The house was the loneliest man I ever knew, learning how to ask a stranger to stay. And she was. Well, she was the answer to a question he didn't know how to ask, showing up broke down on the shoulder of the only road that led to him, with a dog that picked the 10mm on a Tuesday, because the feed stores only opened Tuesday and Friday, and I was coming back up the valley. Some things get finished, not neat, not clean, not the way you drew them, but finished. I rode home, left them in the light.